Alright, good afternoon everyone. My name is Son from Team 2 in Market Research, and today I'm going to present to you about Milestone 5, which is about key findings of our research so far. So before we start, I just wanted to remind you about our research objective for this project, which is to understand the behavior of Vietnamese moviegoers towards Vietnamese and Korean movies. And this is to help CJ to produce and distribute Vietnamese and Korean movies that best suit the local taste and demand. As you can see here, this is the outline of our presentation today. It will be divided into 4 main sections, which are motivation, perception, demand, and other findings. So first of all, which is motivation. For this part, we have asked the question: what motivates people to watch movies at the cinema? In order to find out the results for this question, we have used coding and quasi-statistics to analyze the data that we have collected from our participants in our focus group sessions. This is the graph that we have been able to come up with. As you can see here, the main reason why people watch movies is because of other people. You can clearly see here that it is more than double the next motivation, which is self-motivated, followed by curiosity, miscellaneous reasons, advertisements, and PR. Using this information, we have been able to analyze that the main motivation for people to go out to watch movies is because they are usually invited, asked, or persuaded by friends, group of friends, colleagues, or family members. Our conclusion is that the majority of people who watch movies is because of the influence of other people. This can take the form of word of mouth or review from friends, etc. Another finding that we came up with from this question is that they usually go watch in groups of 2 or more people. Next is the perception part of our research question. For this part, the question that we came up with was: how do Vietnamese people feel about Vietnamese movies? The responses of this question were divided into 2 main parts, which is likes and dislikes. For the like part, as you can see in the graph, just keep in mind that all the results for this presentation were conducted the same way as the previous question, which is coding and quasi-statistics. So for likes, as you can see here, generally Vietnamese people about Vietnamese movies is that they think it is good and it is meaningful, and also that there's a clear improvement of quality compared to previous older movies. Also, they think that there are attractive cast and it has fun factor. But for dislikes, generally people think that Vietnamese movies are boring, meaningless, and the acting is very bad. You can clearly see in this graph that these two factors stand out the most, which are boring, meaningless, and bad acting. These are the most frequently responses that we receive from our respondents. The rest is bad cinematography, predictability, and illogical stories. When we compare the likes and dislikes of Vietnamese movies, you can clearly see a discrepancy between the two. For example, like in likes, you can see that the numbers are significantly smaller than the dislikes. And based on this data, we were able to identify that generally what people like about Vietnamese movies is that they think they prefer the surface factors, the first surface aspects of the movie, which are the actors, and they prefer the surface factors. Sorry, it's moving on its own. What they like about Vietnamese movies are the surface factors, which are the acting and the fun factor to watch it. But what they don't like about Vietnamese movies are usually the fundamental aspects of the movie, which are the storytelling and the acting. Based on these results, we have concluded that Based on these results, we were able to identify that Vietnamese people generally have mixed feelings towards Vietnamese movies. However, one thing that is very clear is that people the dislike of Vietnamese movies outweighs the likes of Vietnamese movies, and we were able to summarize that the majority shows a negative perception towards Vietnamese movies, and usually because of that, they usually have little or no expectation for the movies that they watch. Next, we asked the same question but for Korean movies. Similarly, we divided the responses into likes and dislikes, and here in the graph, people show that they they prefer the attractive cast as well as the meaningful story and the cinematography behind these movies. What they don't like are usually the tacky or sad storylines and unrealistic details. By comparing these two results, again, you can see a discrepancy between them. However, in this case, in the case for Korean movies, the likes are usually the frequency of likes is usually more than the dislikes, as you can clearly see in this comparison. So we were able to and I'm sorry, this is not me doing it; it's the slides.
Can you turn that up and turn the auto run? I think it's on auto run.
Is it?
So otherwise we're not really like that.
Yeah, so what they usually like about Korean movies is that they prefer the surface factor as well as the fundamental aspects of the movie, which are the beautiful and attractive cast, as well as the storytelling and the deep, meaningful storylines. What they usually don't like are usually smaller details, such as the tackiness of the story. Some people refer to cheesiness. Also, some say that the storylines are usually too sad at times, as well as the genre that they provide to the audience is usually limited to only, for example, comedy or romance. And so, generally speaking, Korean movies are not as popular as Vietnamese movies, but for those who are aware of Korean movies, they tend to like it better than Vietnamese movies. And so, while Korean movies still have their drawbacks, they are still widely perceived as being as having a higher quality, as well as exceptional storytelling and outstanding acting. And in our project, we asked another question, which was, how do Vietnamese people feel about Vietnamese movies with Korean factors? We received both positive and negative responses, but we received more on the positive side. And the responses included some things like Korean movies could easily adapt to suit the taste of Vietnamese consumers, as well as Vietnamese movies could greatly benefit from the expertise of the developed Korean movie industry. Others just agreed with this question simply because they were curious to see what Vietnamese movies with Korean factors would be like. On the other side, for the negative responses, people express their feeling that there's an incompatibility between the acting skills and the movie skills of Vietnamese and Koreans. And they said that if Vietnamese and Korean factors mix together, then it wouldn't work very well. Similarly, there's an incompatibility between culture and lifestyle of two different countries. Again, if you mix those two, it won't necessarily work very well. So the majority shows. So based on this data, we were able to conclude that the majority of the people show a favorable and optimistic response towards the Vietnamese with Korean factors generally. Next, we move on to demand. In this section, we, based on the analysis of motivation and perception, we were able to analyze and come up with the demand of Vietnamese people for both Vietnamese movies and Korean movies. So for Vietnamese movies, people express that they feel Vietnamese movies should improve and invest more on the acting, the storytelling, and the storyline of movies. Also, they feel that Vietnamese movies should diversify more in terms of actors and directors, because as of now, the number of directors and actors in the Vietnamese movie is very limited. Another thing is that Vietnamese movies should separate themselves from movies from foreign countries, because many feel that Vietnamese movies are copying a lot of the ideas and techniques from other countries, and so in order for them to make for Vietnamese movies to make an impact on the audience, they have to separate themselves and create something unique for themselves. And as far for Korean movies, people generally feel that Korean movies are good, but they feel that Korean movies are not advertised or PR'd as well as Vietnamese movies, and that's why there's a lack of selection for Vietnamese movies when they go for Korean movies when they go to the cinema. And also, like I mentioned before, Korean movies are limited by the genre, which are usually comedy or romance, and people said that diversification of Korean movies would benefit them. Now, finally, for other findings, these findings are not related to the question that we have answered, but they are interesting facts that we came up with in our analysis. And some of them are that Vietnamese people tend to rely too much on other people's opinion and not enough on other channels such as internet or advertisement. People generally are affected too much by what other people think, and that they're not as easily affected by other sources of information. Also, Vietnamese movies are frequently compared to foreign ones because in the movie industry in general, foreign movies such as American and Korean movies, they set the standards for the quality of movie, and because of that, Vietnamese are generally compared to them, and when that happens, it's usually bad for Vietnamese movies because the Vietnamese industry is not as developed, and so the quality of Vietnamese movies are perceived as being lower and worse. And finally, Vietnamese movies because of that, Vietnamese movies should not copy ideas, and instead they should have its own value and characteristics in order for their movies to make an impact on the audience in general. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.